I'm Alan Joins, the mayor of the city of Winston-Salem and the president of the Winston-Salem Alliance. We're delighted that you're here this morning. I have a number of elected officials here this morning, and I would like for them to stand up and be recognized at this point: city council members, school board, and others. Thank you for all being with us. Again, I appreciate your coming out today, as we have two purposes for being here this morning from our standpoint. First of all, we want to give you a brief snapshot of where our community is in various sectors in terms of the economy, the arts, the social issues, and our public schools. But I think more importantly, we're going to put a stake in the ground, as my friend Don Flo likes to say, as to where we want to be as a community by the end of this decade. You know, this is a kind of a bold and risky move when you lay out the specific goal and objective, and say to you that we're going to come back every year and report to you on how we're doing on that. Now, why are we doing it? You know, it's pretty simple. In order for Winston-Salem to succeed and achieve the goals that you're going to see in just a little bit, we have to come together as a community and collectively agree to these goals, obviously, and then the entire community has to be behind it, have to understand the vision for our community. Now, we're practical, and we know that there are many issues that our community has to deal with. For instance, our poverty level is much too high. We have hungry people in our community. But in order to address those issues, in my judgment, and I back up and say we will address those issues, we must have a strong economy. Now, the good news is we've made a lot of progress, and we have a lot of positive momentum going on in our community. Some great national media attention recently. A New York Times article and a Huffington Post article highlighted the work that we've done to build a technology economy, as well as touting the energetic arts and cultural programs that are going on in our community. You can see there that we've consistently received good rankings from various polls and surveys that occur, and here are just a few. Gallup listed us 10 out of 100 metros for community well-being. The Bloomberg Business listed us as one of America's best 50 cities. And Wallet Hub, 19 out of 150 metros to start a business. The Mercer organization gave us the ranking as the most affordable city. And Forbes listed us as one of the top 25 best places to retire. Yeah, that's good. I like that. But then just Friday, another magazine came out, Southern Business and Development magazine, listed us as one of the 10 most powerful major economies in the South that doesn't get the recognition it deserves. So what was that old joke? We don't get any respect, but we've also made good progress in creating an innovation culture with our wonderful innovation quarter, our research park, the Flywheel co-working space, our technology council, our technology conferences, and our many business plan competitions that have occurred and will occur. You know, it appears that our citizens have a positive attitude about our community by the overwhelming support of our bond issue, the $139 million bond issue that we took to them this past fall. We've been able to address chronic homelessness in our city by reducing it by about 85%. AT&T selected Winston-Salem as one of the cities that it is installing a new ultra-high-speed broadband system in our community. And this will help us as we continue to grow our technology economy. I'll have to say that we have unprecedented cooperation, except from the sound guy, among the city government, the county government, the private sector, and the nonprofits. And we're so fortunate to have such a solid partner in our Forsyth County government. Working together, we've been able to provide significant infrastructure for projects such as the Information Quarter, as well as successfully recruiting companies such as Caterpillar and Herbalife. And I personally want to thank Chairman Dave Plowler and the members of the County Commissioners for their leadership in moving our community forward. Now, this slide, I think, says a lot about what has happened in the past 15 years. It shows a tremendous amount of investment that has occurred just in the center city. About 1.2 billion, that's billion with a B, dollars. So that's where we're at right now. The Moody's Analytics Company ranks Winston-Salem as 145 out of about 400 metro areas across the country relative to our economy and job growth. You know, if our growth remains about the way it is now, about 10%, we'll move up slightly by the end of the decade to about 141. And we'll have employment growth of about 19,800 new jobs coming in. But we feel like that's not where we should be, and because that will limit our ability to address those other issues that we'll talk about today. So this goal is proposed today. By the end of the decade, we want Winston-Salem to be in the top 50 metro areas in our country. Now, to get there, and how will we do it? We'll have to increase our job growth rate from 10% to 13%. Or, simply stated, we have to add 7,500 net new jobs over and above those 19,800 that we would ordinarily get. Now, how do we accomplish that growth? It will occur, I believe, if we continue to work together cooperatively as we have been in the past. And other high-performing areas that we've studied around the country have used kind of 3 different strategies to address those. In Hagerstown, Maryland, for instance, they had a big infusion of federal dollars. In Madison, Wisconsin, they relied on their intellectual capital. And then in Killeen, Texas, they started working with existing assets. Now, what we'll do, we'll use a couple of those. We'll certainly be reusing some of our existing assets, and we'll be capitalizing on our intellectual capital. We're going to focus on these 3 big areas right here. The Wake Forest Innovation Corridor, our wonderful research park that we believe has the potential to create thousands of jobs. The Whitaker Park complex that you read about, R.J. Reynolds very generously donated these buildings and land to a nonprofit development authority there, as well as creating an entrepreneurial culture in our community. I firmly believe that successful cities of the future will be those cities that have a vibrant entrepreneurial culture and ability to make rapid change. We've put together working task forces on each one of these 3 initiatives. It's begun work already, and they'll be engaging various members and organizations in our community to help bring that forward. We'll now hear from Bob Leake about the capital investments made and needed in our community. Gail Anderson will talk about job makeup in our community. Janet Wheeler will address social issues. Jim Sparrow will talk about the arts, and finally Beverly Emery will talk about goals for our public school system. So, Bob?
Well, good morning. There's plenty of seats up front for those of you that are in the back if you choose. There's 3 here, 5 or 6 in the middle, so feel free to come forward if you would like. And welcome again. It's delightful to see a full room. We had no idea when we put this together who we were going to see when we got up to the podium, and it's just great to see this room full. And thank you all for coming to hear about, I think, some very important things going on in this community. My job today is to talk about infrastructure and capital projects, and so I want to quickly do that. I tried to pull together what I thought were some of the key and significant things that are taking place throughout this community and some things that we need to work on, because we do have some opportunities. And it's been said that infrastructure is the foundation on which a successful community is built. To do that, you need good roads, accessible public parks, modern public facilities, residential opportunities of all types, ready-to-go industrial sites and buildings so you have a place for companies to land. And while Winston-Salem and Forsyth County are lacking in a few key infrastructure items that I'll cover in just a moment, the good news is that we have recognized these deficiencies. We know what they are, and we're working diligently as a community to try to improve those. Excuse me. In my short time with you this morning, I'd like to highlight a few of the key capital projects that are going on. I'm going to first start out talking about sites and facilities. A recent study that Winston-Salem Business Inc. did looked at available industrial and business park land throughout Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And what we realized was that we were becoming woefully short on physical places to put companies that had an interest in either relocating to this community or expanding their business in this community. The largest business park site that we have currently available in all of the parks throughout Forsyth County is about 50 acres. And there's only one shovel-ready site, and shovel-ready means that it's got all of the infrastructure, utilities, and properties to be able to present it to a company. There's only one site over 50 acres that we have in our inventory currently in all of Forsyth County, and that one will soon be under option and won't be available any further. The point there is that if a Caterpillar, an Herbalife, even a Dell, any of these larger opportunities were to come to our community today, I have nothing to show them. And so we're working very, very hard to try to fix that issue. There's been some positive momentum in regard to sites and facilities. The mayor mentioned the Innovation Quarter, what a great project that is, and it has already achieved almost $1 billion in new investment, and is home to key departments of Wake Forest University, and soon the Wake Forest School of Medicine will move into a building that's currently being renovated. There's also room to grow in the Innovation Quarter. They have several key sites that are visible on the highway, which will be great corporate headquarters sites, and we're going to be working to try to market that as a community to companies that want to move here. In January of this year, RJ Reynolds made one of the largest corporate donations ever made to a community in this country, with the donation of 1.7 million square feet of space and over 125 acres of land at Whitaker Park. What a great gift, what a wonderful opportunity for this community. There is a nonprofit group that was put together to receive that gift called the Whitaker Park Development Authority, and the goal of that organization is to develop a strategy and a plan to repurpose Whitaker Park to bring it back to what we hope will be a vibrant location with jobs, tax-based investment, and other opportunities. That won't happen overnight. Obviously, that's a big project with a lot of parts and pieces, but we are working on different phases of that to try to make that happen. On the land side, to find some additional sites, Winston-Salem Business Inc. has been working closely with the city and particularly the planning department on identifying and developing new business park and industrial park land throughout Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. Last year, we engaged Stimmel & Associates to help us scan the county and identify potential large parcels of land that might be available one day to be assembled and put together. And we have that list and are working on that, and we hope to bring one or two of those to bear a little bit later this year. In addition to that, I would like to recognize the City Council. I know a number of them are on the front. We asked them for some help. We need new industrial buildings in this market, and so they have loaned us some money from the remainder of the Dell repayment funds to help us build a spec building in this market. We received bid packages yesterday. We will hopefully award a bid in the next 10 days, and we plan to start construction of a new 50,000 square foot building at Union Cross Business Park early this summer. So we're making some progress there. Moving on, the transportation issues, I think, are well known to everyone in this room and certainly throughout this community. But currently, Winston-Salem is the only urban city in North Carolina without a loop or a beltway system. Our neighbors to the west and our neighbors to the east all have their beltways either completed or almost completed. And the eastern portion of our beltway is critical. It's our critical connector for the Interstate 74 project. We're woefully behind in our beltways, but we are working to try to fix that. The first leg of the eastern beltway has begun. Certainly that's not enough. We need to finish all of the eastern portion in order for Forsyth County's segment of I-74 to be complete, and we need to continue to work on that. The good news is 3 other legs of the Eastern Beltway are in the Transportation Improvement Plan for the state, and the governor has proposed a bond program that would finance additional road construction, which would help us, if it passes, complete not only the eastern portion, but also several legs of the western portion of the Beltway. So to the extent you can, please plan to support that endeavor to get the bonds passed for highway and infrastructure improvement. Several other key transportation projects currently underway in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. One is the Salem Creek Connector. If you haven't been south of 52 and Business 40, you need to ride down there and take a look at what's going on. When that is complete, that is going to become the new southern gateway into downtown and into the Innovation Quarter, and will give great connectivity from the south into downtown Winston-Salem. You might have read the editorial today and an article last week about Business 40. Business 40 will be closing sometime in the next few years to do a complete remodel of the highway itself and also most of the bridges between Silas Creek Parkway and US 52. That project could take up to 4 years to complete, and the road would be closed for approximately 2 years. And while that is going to be a major inconvenience, once it's complete, the final result could be quite outstanding for Winston-Salem. Think about the possibility of really cool bridges as you come into Winston-Salem, walking trails along the new highway, green space. All of those things could be I-40 through downtown Winston-Salem, and I believe that would make our downtown a destination point for people driving through. And then finally, on the transportation front, we've got to continue to work on improving US 52. our kind of major north-south connector. It is still very crowded. It's dangerous intersections in certain places. It has been improved some, but we need to continue to focus on that. And my final piece today is to talk about, if I can get this slide to change, several community projects that are underway. While all of the periphery of transportation and business parks and things are vital to the community, the heart and soul of a community are in their parks and public spaces that are available to all of the citizens of the community. And there are several interesting projects that are underway right now, primarily in downtown Winston-Salem, that are quite exciting. One is this facility that we're in right now. Unfortunately, it's older, it's tired, it needs some help, and the good news is there's a plan being developed to completely redo and modernize this convention center to make it a magnet for bringing folks from outside of our community here for their conferences, their conventions, their meetings, and we're really excited about the opportunity that could be. The city is preparing a $16 million makeover of Union Station. This is a really, really exciting project right at the front door of Winston-Salem State University, right at the entrance as you come into downtown Winston-Salem on the south side of I-Business 40. And it will be redeveloped into a multimodal transportation center that would also house offices, retail, other potential uses. And we think that is a great public space coming for Winston-Salem. We've all followed the recent news on the renovation of Forsyth County Central Library, and it's exciting that now the plans have been submitted, the budget is being finalized, and we hope to see the redevelopment of that project moving along soon. The new library will serve as a central meeting place for downtown Winston-Salem, and I think will be a shining beacon in the feather of downtown once again as a great place for people to come and meet and mill around and enjoy the downtown atmosphere. Part of the $28 million economic development bonds that the citizens of Winston-Salem overwhelmingly passed a year ago are going to be used to help renovate a green space on 4th Street known as Marshall Plaza. This will be one of Winston-Salem's central parks. It'll be a nice large green meeting space and outdoor space, and coupled with the recently completed Bailey Park and the Innovation Quarter, Marshall Plaza will add more outdoor meeting and event space to the downtown market. And I'll close with one final, what I believe is a very important piece of capital investment in our community, and that is downtown residential. We need to continue to improve our option on downtown living. We need to make sure that our mix includes not only apartments, but condos, townhomes, and single-family homes so that everyone who has an interest in living in downtown can find a product that meets their needs. Just this year, Plant 64, the Link Apartments, and the Edge all have opened. We need to keep this momentum going. We all know it. Winston-Salem is a great community. It is a fantastic place to live, work, and play. And I believe by focusing on and completing some of these key infrastructure needs, we will become that leading mid-sized city that we all want us to be. Thank you.
Again, thank you all for being here. We are just delighted to have a standing room only crowd. My job is to bring a little bit of reality to some of the things that we've been talking about and give you a picture of where we stand today and what the forecast looks like from the perspective of jobs in the economy. So, in other words, how are we going to get there from here? Just to review a little bit about the statistics that the mayor gave you. The Moody's Analytics projects that we will add those 19,800 jobs by 2018. But that's not going to be good enough if we really do want to break that top 50. So that's another 7,600 jobs. And if we really wanted to get aspirational, we could try to hit the top 30, which would mean an additional 12,200 jobs for a total of 32,000. Now that's a little bit unrealistic for our community, but you know, in Winston-Salem, we're always up for a challenge. But I think what we also have to do is take a look at what the real forecasts are, not just for our community, but for other places in the country and some of the cities that we compete with. So if you look, you can see the data on the right from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects our growth rate. Now this is for the next 20 years, so it's a little different from the Moody Analytics. So it projects the rate across the country to be 36.1%. And you can see that our projected rate is below that. Now, you need to understand that that is the Winston-Salem metro region, which includes more than Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. It includes Forsyth, Davidson, Davie, Stokes, and Surrey, some of our more rural counties. But nevertheless, we are projected to grow at a slower rate over the next 20 years than the U.S. average. And if you compare us to some of our competitor cities in Raleigh, Greenville, South Carolina, Charlotte, we are projected to grow slightly less than them as well. And we're only slightly ahead of the projection for our sister city, Greensboro. So clearly we have some work to do to improve our projections, but we're certainly up to the challenge. I don't expect you to be able to read this slide, but the point of it is to talk about the correlations between income and education in all communities. And before we look at some specific job industry categories, I'd just like to talk a little bit more about that. Because we want to create jobs, there's no question about that. But we want to create good jobs that pay well so that people can support their families, support the lifestyle that we all want to have. And there's a direct correlation between median household income and educational attainment. I don't want to suggest by this chart, which shows four-year degrees or higher, I don't want to suggest that that's the only option for people in our community, because certainly there are a lot of jobs in our community that pay substantial wages without a four-year degree. But folks have to be intentional about the kinds of careers that they prepare for, and if they're going to get training from Forsyth Tech, which is an incredibly wonderful institution, or other of our educational institutions, they have to be intentional about the kinds of careers that they're preparing for. But I think we do have to acknowledge that there is a direct correlation between income and education levels. This chart shows that our Winston-Salem, this is a Winston-Salem number, not a regional number, our median household income is more than $10,000 below the U.S. average. And we're below in comparison to the cities of Raleigh, Charlotte, Greenville, and Greensboro. So we clearly have some work to do. While our percentage of population with a four-year degree is above the U.S. level, we're also below our comparison cities. Here in Winston-Salem, we continue to see a gap between the good-paying jobs that are available today, and the skills of our workforce. We need to address this to be able to continue to create more high-paying jobs for our residents. So let's talk a little bit about our economy and how it has diversified. Now, when you see this chart, don't just think, I can't read the numbers, because I'm going to just hit the highlights for you. What this circle graph shows you is how much our economy has diversified. At one time, manufacturing was nearly 40% of our workforce. Today, it is 10%. It's that purple triangle that you see there. Of the top 16 employers that are listed on this chart, the two largest are in the healthcare industry. There are 3 manufacturers, and there are 6 that are education and government related. Of the top 16 employers in our county, half are nonprofits or government. Now, there's nothing wrong with nonprofit and government jobs. I work for one. But that will not help us create that growing dynamic economic base that we all want for our community to take us up to those Moody's rankings. More than half of our jobs are in these fields: healthcare, retail trade, manufacturing, accommodations and food, and educational services. Quite a difference from when 40% of our jobs were in manufacturing. This graph just shows you, in a very visual way, a 10-year snapshot of which industries are growing jobs and which industries have pay that is growing. And it basically, this is a North Carolina statistic. It's not broken down for Forsyth County. But what it shows is that for our 5 largest industry segments that I just mentioned, only healthcare and accommodations and food have both the number of jobs increasing and the wages increasing. Those are sweet spots that we want to work on. Obviously, we want to grow in areas that are growing and where jobs are increasing. Finance and insurance jobs, as well as educational service jobs, have decreased. The number has decreased, but the pay has increased. And both the number of jobs and pay levels have been decreasing overall this state in manufacturing. Ideally, obviously, we would want the number of jobs and pay to be increasing in our larger segments, but this is generally not the case for us today. That one that you see that is the absolute largest in percentage of increase happens to be mining, which has to do a lot with energy production in North Carolina. So our community's challenge is to create more jobs than we are projected to create in the next 5 to 10 years, and to emphasize job creation in industry segments that pay well, where pay is rising, and where the number of jobs is increasing. It's a tall order, but I know we're up to the challenge. Thank you.
Good morning. Yeah. I'm Janet Wheel, and I'm honored to be serving as chairman of the Winston-Salem Foundation Committee this year. It's a real privilege to be a part of this inaugural State of the Community program. And the foundation is pleased that it is being held in conjunction with our annual community meeting, which again has attracted over 1,100 community residents to learn and celebrate the contributions of people who make this community a special place to live. So for those of you that have tickets, I invite you, when this is over, to join us next door for the community meeting. The Winston-Salem Foundation is one of many institutions that is making a difference in all of the lives in this community. As a community foundation, we are privileged to see the vast array of organizations that work to improve the quality of life for our residents, with many more opportunities to invest in than projects to fund and support. The foundation relies on partnerships with other funders on a timely and accurate research to help determine where our funds might have the greatest impact. Our long-standing partnership with Forsyth Futures has helped guide and inform our work, and we are thankful to them for providing the analysis for the information I will be sharing with you today. Of course, time will not permit that I go into great depth on any of the individual topic, but I do hope this summary will provide you some context of the well-being of our community on a wide array of issues. As you will see when I share the data, there are certain areas that have made tremendous progress, but there are other areas that need much, much more attention. Let us begin with our county's poverty rate. As the chart shows, for the period 2009-2013, the percentage of residents in poverty has increased by about 1% each year. And I think what's kind of disturbing about this data is that the percentage of children living in poverty has increased by about 3% each year. 21% of our residents lived in poverty in 2013, with nearly 1/3 of our children under the age of 18 living in poverty. Black residents were about twice as likely as white residents to be in poverty, and Hispanic residents were also more likely to be in poverty than both those groups. Even more challenging is that the research indicates, again, that the children growing up poor increases the likelihood of being poor as an adult. It also increases children's risk of poor health and, unfortunately, poor economic outcomes. As the next slide illustrates, Forsyth County has pockets of concentrated poverty. I know this slide is very, very difficult to see, but the point is where at least 40% of residents that live in poverty, they're in concentrated poverty areas. Between 2009 and 2013, about 30% of all children under 18 lived in concentrated poverty tracts. Research again shows that neighborhoods with high levels of poverty tend to experience a network of factors that make it harder for people to escape poverty. Factors include a lack of high-quality public and private sector services like grocery stores, strong schools, access to local jobs, and high-quality childcare. Clearly, breaking the cycle of poverty is difficult as a challenge, but certainly it is one that we must continue to focus on. An area where our community has made significant progress, and I think Mayor Allen Jones also mentioned this in his comments, is that over the past decade, our chronic homeless population has decreased. Through a concentrated effort, including the 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness and several other collaborative efforts to increase the stock of affordable housing, the community's chronic homeless population has decreased over 50% during the last 9 years. Today, as indicated in the previous slide, there are 99 individuals who are chronically homeless compared to 200 in 2005. Those collaborative efforts are really working. Additionally, the number of people who enter the homeless services arena has decreased 20% over the past 3 years. Well, as you have heard from Gail just in the last presentation, a strong economy creates good paying jobs, and that's critical to the well-being of our community and residents. Household income is one measure of that progress. As you can see on this chart, in 2013, the median income in Forsyth County was approximately $45,700. However, there appears to be growing disparity of top earners and those in the bottom 20%. Households in the top 5% made 10 times as much as the bottom 20% in 2013. In fact, during the period of 2009 to 2013, the average income for the bottom 20% of households dropped by about $1,000. It should be noted, however, that simply increasing employment does not always guarantee a decrease in poverty rate, especially when incomes are stagnant or decreasing. Finally, regarding our community's physical health, as you can see in this graph, approximately 17% of Forsyth County residents were uninsured as of 2013. Now, this equates to about 52,000 people in Forsyth County. With national health care insurance available in 2014, we should expect that those numbers would drop somewhat. So we will wait to see what those measurements look like. Our community's infant mortality rate still is higher than the state average. In 2013, our rate was 8.2 per 1,000 live births, compared to 7 per 1,000 births across the state, a 17% higher than the rest of the state here in Forsyth County. Over the past 5 years, Forsyth County's rate has vacillated between 8 and 10 infant death rates per 1,000 births. As we continue to look at health, it looks like we're maintaining a healthy weight, and that's important to our health because it continues to lower instances of high blood pressure, stroke, and diabetes. And as you can see in this chart, 36% of Forsyth County residents were at a healthy weight in 2013. That compares to 33.4% of all Americans and 32.4% of fellow North Carolinians. Forsyth County residents are doing slightly better than the national and state averages, so let's keep moving. Although this is a very brief outline of the state of the well-being within our community, it is evident that we have many areas to be proud of in the community, but there are areas that certainly do need improvement. Our community is blessed with generous charitable resources, strong governmental agencies, and a committed nonprofit sector. However, we are faced with certain challenges that need to be addressed in order for our community to reach its full potential. Continued focused attention on specific issues such as poverty and homelessness, stronger collaborative efforts among service providers, and a commitment to tackle these issues intentionally and creatively will be required if we are to be successful. Given our community's ability to rally around other challenges, I believe we can, in fact, make substantial improvements in many of these areas. We at the Winston-Salem Foundation look forward to working together to help address these challenges to build a happier, healthier, and more sustainable community for years to come. I thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jim Sparrow, and it's my pleasure to give the report on the arts. And for this particular presentation, it's less about where we are, but where we'd like to go. Three focus areas that I'd like to stress that have been part of our conversations over the last year and a half related to how we live up to being a city of the arts, especially in the 21st century. One, looking like a city of the arts. That includes creating a unique vibe that garners national attention, utilizing those unique Winston-Salem and authentic assets, encouraging creative entrepreneurship, promoting collaboration between our creatives and innovators, but also understanding that the arts are not all nonprofit, but they can be for-profit, and we benefit from both. And then unifying our community, working together for better systems, delivery, awareness, and access. There's no reason that Winston-Salem can't be known as the city with the greatest access for arts and culture in the country. So let's talk a little bit about looking the part. Public Art Master Plan. This, I'm happy to say, the framework was approved just this year thanks to the leadership, Kelly Bennett in the Planning Department, and a fantastic committee of representatives from the community. That is the first step towards realizing the hard work, but a very vital step, and something that I'm very proud to have been a part of, especially since it was such a community effort. Other forms of expression, the busking. Many of you may be familiar with the fact that we have ordinance approved and guidelines in place. Again, thanks to the Downtown Winston-Salem Partnership for their leadership with Jason and others who took up the mantle to figure out how to put the guidelines in place to allow us to do greater and better things with that. This again is working to enhance our visibility and quality of life through looking the part. And then public gathering and community. Further enhancing and supporting current efforts. As was mentioned by Bob and others, we're creating valuable spaces throughout downtown and the greater community. How do we enhance those areas, and how do we encourage investment in ways that everybody gets to use them and everyone is touched by them? Creative entrepreneurship. As I mentioned, this is a combination of looking at the nonprofits that we have that give us such a vital and active cultural life, but also the parts that are necessary as we become a leader as a city of the arts. I have been told many times and believe that the arts are part of a sustainer structure here, and I believe that is true. However, I do think that there are opportunities where the arts become an economic driver in and of themselves, especially as we deal with entertainment industry and small business. So how do we encourage that the right way and make that balance appropriate? So community engagement grants, non-traditional and grants that are not dependent on 501c3 status, small, quick, and focused on impact. The Arts Council has launched this balloon this year with some success, but again, understanding that the arts are accessed in many different ways by many different parts of the communities, and how do we encourage that without expecting everything to be processed the same way? Initiatives based on competitive funding, enhancing traditional funding focused on 3 priority areas. The priority areas that I'm mentioning right now. That's helping us embrace our moniker and keeping traditional groups thinking about innovation. It's difficult to think about innovation if all we're doing is thinking about how we keep the status quo. So how do we encourage that? And that is one of the initiatives that we'll be looking at putting in place as we move forward. Art in unexpected places. This is something that we'll see more in the future. Again, not only funding, but activity as it relates to public art, performance, and expression. Again, a city of the arts is a place that expects that, and as you come to visit it, you expect it as well. And exploring true venture capital funding pools. As I mentioned, I think there is a place beyond just the quality of life that allows the arts and the entertainment industries that could be part of our economic driver, that would allow support of non-traditional arts residencies, creative startups, and creative job creation. This is something that's being explored in other communities. It's a place that I believe that Winston-Salem, with the entrepreneurial culture that the mayor mentioned, could be a leader and something that we're prepared to focus on in the next 5 years. Finally, unifying and collaborative systems. The Arts Quarter, which is a working title to go along with the Arts District, but the Arts Quarter, again, looking at what the future is for the Stevens Center and that performance quarter that is developing. How do we do this the right way? How do we do this in a shared way? And how do we do this with the kind of impact that will bring great economic impact as well as visitors to Winston-Salem? Collaborative partnerships and operations. I used as examples some of the steps that we've taken already, but the concept, again, is we are greater than the sum of our parts, and how do we work for innovative systems? Some of the things listed on the screen are steps that we have taken at the Arts Council and other of our partners have taken to begin to venture into that area. The Arts Council offices and some of our traditional groups have moved into the Milton Road Center, creating a small petri dish or a microsystem of what can be part of the entire community in terms of these pockets and neighborhoods. Non-traditional partnerships that include small for-profits and institutions that are not normally part of the arts and cultural scene, such as Wake Forest and the Lifelong Learning program, as well as small entrepreneurs that benefit from this type of activity. And then also looking at ways for our public spaces to become community programming spaces. Winston Square Park is just one of those opportunities. We actually have an event there this afternoon. Again, it's about creating opportunities for more unifying around the arts and culture as a city of the arts. And then also looking long-term at exploring other shared services, co-locating businesses, and what I talked about yesterday, which is basically a cultural trust. Taking the lead and understanding if we want to be an exceptional city, we have to figure out how to sustain it, we have to give access to everyone, and we have to think about innovative systems to do that. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm so happy to live downtown in all this. I'm keeping a healthy weight by walking all over and watching this wonderful growth. In fact, when you go last, you can integrate what you've heard. And so a quick illustration, a couple of Thursday nights ago, I arrived home late, walked the 6 flights of stairs, and opened the window because finally it was one of those days that was warm enough to open your window. And I heard loud music because I live downtown. My phone rings. It's my son who lives in Petaluma, California. Mom, is that music I hear? Yes, I have the windows open. I can hear him clicking on a keyboard. He said, oh, that's Snoop Dogg. I live a block away, and I'm not sure who it is, but this is the world we're preparing our children for, correct? They have access to everything. They need to be stimulated by economics and arts and growth and innovation, and there's no better place for us than our community. We have 3 non-negotiables in our district right now. We launched them last July, and we have spent a lot of time articulating them across all of our schools and within our community. One of those is not new to you. It has been a top priority that our schools and our community have made great progress on, and that is the 90% graduation rate by 2018. Last year, we sported the highest rate we've had on record at 83.5, but within that, we have more than half of our high schools that have already achieved this 90% rate. Great growth there, and we continue on that trajectory with tremendous community support. We added the reading goal. Many of you have heard me say we won't sustain 90% graduation if the pipeline is not sending readers to middle and high school. So we also have a goal that by 2020, 90% of our third graders will read on or above grade level. Now, some folks have asked me, well, that's a good ways away. That number at the end of last school year was 58%. Now, I say that telling you people are working hard and making great progress. In fact, in our district, almost all of our schools make growth by the state accountability model, meaning they get a year's worth of growth for the time that children spend in school. But if you start 2 years behind, it takes more from us to catch you up. And so we're trying to be very aggressive about what we put in place and how we allocate resources at K through 3 in order to ensure that children leave third grade reading on or above grade level. We believe the impact of that for our business of education is huge in terms of our ability to reallocate resources from things like remediation of those students all the way through the pipeline and refocus on things like pre-K and how do we make sure children are prepared before they enter the system. We're really excited about the focus here. I wanted to share a couple of things happening with this strategy because you may hear about it, and as the lady who gets to announce it and put it out there with the staff, I want you to hear it from me. We have identified a set of schools that have not made growth, and they will not have the flexibility and autonomy that they've had in the past. Their budgets will be scrutinized, their plans will be. We have created a list of power strategies, evidence-based strategies, a menu. Folks will have to choose from that menu unless they can provide evidence that the strategies they have in place now are helping us get the outcomes we need to get to these goals. So we're going to be a little tighter in some places, but we're also working to be sure that we support those efforts as a district as well. The third goal is our gap goal. I know hearing about an achievement gap is not a surprise. Our schools have been working on the gap for years, but we've never had an explicit goal that says we are going to make progress in closing that gap. You've seen a lot of statistics here this morning. All of them parallel the challenges of your public schools. Our lowest performing subgroup is the highest poverty population of our community, and most of them don't speak English as their first language. So our challenge as a district is to welcome them in, help them get an education, and they really get no break on the state or federal accountability standards for which we are held accountable. What does that mean, Bev? That means I could enter school in 2nd grade, not speak a bit of English, and by 5th grade I will be tested like any of my other colleagues on the same assessments and expected to be proficient. So great challenges in how we accelerate and support learning within our schools. We set some priorities to help us achieve these, and I want to quickly tell you that these priorities were not just locally supported. A lot of you have asked, why are the scores better in Charlotte? We don't just benchmark against the cities that Gail showed you. We also have been, in the last 2 years, adopted, so to speak, by the Eli and Edie Broad Foundation, which provide tremendous support to urban school districts in how to get better. We had a diagnostic visit, and we're using a lot of their recommendations to guide our work. And one of the things we know from looking at urban school districts across the country who have made tremendous progress, they have strong leadership development programs in place. Right now, we're benchmarking the 10 highest rated programs in the country to develop our own, because without good leaders in all parts of our organization, these goals are not going to become a reality. We also instituted differentiated support to all of our schools this year, And what that really means is we reorganized our central office in such a way so that we can deploy resources to schools based on what their own needs are. They all don't look alike. They have huge variance. The 24 schools we have who have 100% free and reduced lunch rate have very different needs from schools in other parts of our system. We also are the only district we know of and that Broad knows of this year that instituted continuous improvement for all departments. Our schools have been doing that for a long time, but every department in the district is now required to create an improvement plan that supports those 3 goals you just saw. And it's been a great way to engage HVAC and grounds crews and cafeteria staff who have all come up with goals. And what we're trying to do is help them see that they are connected to the educational mission and value of our district. So when we start testing in about a week, all the grass mowing is going to stop. So if it looks a little hairy out there, the reason is our grounds crew's goal was to figure out how to organize their work around all of the testing that goes on in May and June. So it's a small step, but it's a great way for them to see how they can contribute to the academic mission of our organization. In the next few months, we will begin to focus a lot on struggling students and how we help our schools with evidence-based strategies to be sure that those students who struggle in a myriad of ways have the supports that they need. Our teachers, whether they're brand new or master teachers, tell us this is where they need the most support. Kids come with problems we never dreamed of. They present in unique and challenging ways, and teachers need help. And finally, intentionally engaging our community, this fabulous community we have that doesn't point blame at the schools. And I'm going to say this, and I hope if I'm here for 20 years, my goal is to beat Dr. Martin. Probably have to have a wheelchair to do that, but a little oxygen. But anyway, I only say that because he's here. This is the only community in my 35-year career that has not blamed the schools for what goes on everywhere. We own it as a community. We just say, what do we need to do to make this better and fix it? And so our 4th priority is to continue to engage you and the amazing partners we have in this work. We would not have raised graduation rate without the work of the Chamber, without the work of the United Way, without the support of Kate B. Reynolds, without the support of the Winston-Salem Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club, and I could go on and on. And so our 4th priority is to continue through the Forsyth Promise and Forsyth Futures and these other great organizations that have rallied around our goals to keep our community engaged and focused so that when we get to these milestones, we're all celebrating in one of these beautiful parks downtown the success of our children. Thank you.
Well, thank you. How many of you feel like you've taken a drink from a big fire hose this morning? We have shared a lot of information with you this morning, but I hope you'll take away 2 things. First, I hope you'll agree and have an understanding of where each of these sectors are currently with regards to the status of our community. But more importantly, I hope you will see and agree that each of these sectors has concrete, measurable goals that we'll be reporting to you on each year. Now, you may also be asking yourself, why do we even want to be in the top 50 metro areas? Is it just ego? Is it just to be competitive? But I would say this to you. If we achieve that goal, we'll be able to address poverty. We'll be able to support the arts. We'll be able to support the schools. And we'll be able to have a city that everyone wants to live and prosper in. And I think what you also see today is all these sectors are interrelated. Each one depends on each other, and underlying it all is a strong economy. We would certainly like to have your input, and If you have questions about what you might have heard today, or if you have thoughts about what our goals are, I would invite you to email me at this address with your comments and thoughts going forward, because we're going to come back here next year and give you a report and tell you how we're doing. Again, thank you all for being a part of this first annual State of the Community event. Have a great day.